But
Fair enough.
moving on to the Michigan Panthers after your St. Louis Battlehawks. Head coach Mike Nolan. He is a former head coach of the 49ers, so there's some experience for you. Was that when the 49ers were great? Not particularly. But he did have a job in Dallas as their defensive coordinator in 2020, so another valuable experience. And he's going to bring a lot of veteran leadership to this Michigan Panthers team. They're going to be looking to – I'm going to let Reese get into the personnel there in a second, but some pros and cons right now of the Michigan Panthers. If you're wanting to be a fan of this team, Michigan football overall right now is hot. University of Michigan, they won the national championship. The Detroit Lions are back. They won 2 playoff games. They almost beat the 49ers there at the end. So Michigan football is hot. They're going to have a lot of people potentially jumping on board to this. They have a former Michigan State University quarterback in Brian Lewerke. So maybe that's some added interest from those there in East Lansing. And they have a pretty decent-sized market. Detroit, Michigan overall, that's a loyal market. They're proud to be from Michigan overall. So interesting things there. Some cons, their colors. The USFL really, really missed on this one. This is maybe one of the worst
Add this one to the list.
This is probably one of the worst. I'm hoping.
It really is, though, and the logo stinks.
Yeah, I think they could have done a lot better with the Panthers. There's already a lot of teams with the name Panthers, Carolina Panthers, Florida Panthers. So that we could be a little more unique, maybe something to tie it to Michigan a little bit more. I don't know, like the auto industry used to be in Detroit. I don't know. The Pistons are not a horse. They're based on the car, right? Like, I don't know. Just it's frustrating.
Figure it out. What we're saying.
We're saying figure it out.
Dwayne Johnson's in control. He had he's got to give the USFL a little bit. They've got it.
Absolutely. So their colors suck. They went 4-6 last year, didn't make the playoffs. And Reese, when's the last time you've seen a Panther in Michigan?
Never. The answer is never.
There is no Panthers in Michigan, according to the Department of Natural Resources in Michigan. So I don't see the reason to be named the Panthers.
I'm trying to figure out who even was responsible for branding these. Because it's an absolute joke.
Absolute joke show.
They kind of hit with the showboats, though. I mean, that sharp color combination, like they're not all misses.
Right. Agreed. I agree. So, Reese, let's jump into some player personnel here for the Michigan Panthers.
Yeah. All right. Looks like the only name we get in the USFL ownership is Brian Wood. So, Brian, you missed on this one, buddy.
Me?
All right, Dwayne Johnson, he's got a chance to fix this.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I trust The Rock. All right, onto the roster, though. So they're kind of in a rough spot. They've only got one returning all-USFL player. That's Braylon Speaks, and that's a good one. He's a good edge rusher. He's got NFL experience and a pretty productive player in the National Football League for a short stint. Really productive player at Ole Miss, though. So really productive college career. Obviously really productive in the USFL, earning the all-USFL honors. So he'll be back. He's the only all-league player that they will be returning. And there's a lot of uncertainty at the quarterback position. However, they do have 2 quarterbacks with a pretty solid resume and fairly good experience. So Brian Lewerke, he's on the team mostly because they're trying to get some Michigan fandom. Being the former Michigan State guy, that's kind of how this whole roster dispersion thing kind of worked. But he had experience with the Patriots, the Giants, played for the Sea Dragons last year, and ended up on the Panthers last year as well. He'll be returning to the roster this year. So that's the guy. But we would assume that Danny Etling, we don't know, but we would assume that Danny Etling, former LSU quarterback, he played really well at LSU, ended up being drafted to the New England Patriots. He's also spent a lot of time on numerous teams. So the Falcons, Seahawks, Vikings, he's played in Canada, played for the Seahawks, Broncos, Packers, Jaguars, played again for the Packers, not this season, but last season. Actually, last season and this season, it's been a little bit of time. Obviously, he's no longer on the Packers. He's going to play quarterback for the Panthers. Hopefully this year, we would assume that he would be the starter. He's the more experienced and, generally speaking, more talented player. But yeah, outside of that, there's not a whole lot to talk about. Kai Nakua is a big name player. He's a defender. He'll play a defensive back for the Panthers. You probably think the name is fairly familiar. You're right. His younger brother, Puka Nakua, is the receiver for the Rams, who was, I think, second in running for Rookie of the Year this year in the National Football League. So really awesome, only behind C.J. Stroud, who he's going to be a very, 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 very good quarterback in the National Football League. Unfortunately, being a Colts fan, we'll have to play him twice a year. But that's beside the fact. So Puka's brother, Kai, is going to play safety. But two things that I will say. So Desmond Patton played for the Colts. Really, he just kind of got beat out in a fairly deep receiving room. He's a tall, long, and physical receiver. There was one game where he specifically had to step up in 2019. It was when Carson Wentz was the quarterback of the Colts. It was a Christmas Day game against the Arizona Cardinals. He ends up catching the game-winning touchdown in a game where he had to step up and play a massive role because I don't believe Michael Pittman played in that game. So he had to fill Pittman's role, ends up scoring the game-winning touchdown. So he's a tall, long, physical receiver. He's going to be a pretty solid player, I would imagine, for the Panthers. And Trey Quinn was Mr. Irrelevant in the 2018 NFL draft. He's a shifty slot receiver, kick returner, kind of like a Wes Welker, Julian Edelman type mold, played for the Commanders. He will be playing on the Michigan Panthers this year. So not a lot of star power. Again, this is probably going to be one of those teams that's going to have a lot of infiltrated new talent. So there's a lot of unknown on this team. So they could end up being pretty good. But if you're just judging them compared to a team like we just talked about, the Battlehawks, who's returning a lot of all-league players, they're not necessarily looking the strongest.
Okay.